The transport ship landed with a soft hum on the docking platform. Jiwoo stepped out into the bright lights of the Valorian ambassador station and took a deep breath. The air smelled different here, cleaner than Earth air, with a slight metallic tang that reminded her of mountain snow. She carried only one small bag. Everything else she needed was already waiting for her in her new quarters. A tall figure approached her. The being stood at least 7 feet tall, covered in sleek silver fur that caught the light. Sharp eyes watched her carefully. This was Commander Hyen, the Valorian liaison she had spoken with over video calls. In person, he looked even more impressive and slightly terrifying. "Dr. Jiwoo," Hyen said. His voice was deep and rumbling. "Welcome to Station Carries. I trust your journey was comfortable." "Yes, thank you," Jiwoo replied. She tried not to stare at his claws, which were as long as her fingers. "I'm excited to begin work," Hyen nodded slowly. "The cubs are waiting. They arrived 3 days ago. We have kept them in holding quarters until you came." He started walking, and Jiwoo followed. "I must tell you again, Dr. Jiwoo, that this assignment is unusual. Valorians do not need caretakers. Our young are independent from birth. But these 4, their situation is unique." Jiwoo had read the files many times. 4 Valorian cubs, aged approximately 6 years old in human terms. Their parents had died in a ship accident. The cubs had been found together, huddled in an escape pod. Normally, Valorian young were raised in isolation, learning to hunt and survive alone. But these 4 had only each other for months before rescue came. They walked through long corridors. Other aliens passed by, some humanoid, others completely different. Jiwoo saw beings made of crystal, beings that floated in the air, beings with too many limbs to count. The galaxy was vast and strange, and she loved every moment of learning about it. "Here," Hyen said, stopping at a large door. "Your quarters are through there. The cubs' rooms are nearby." 4 separate rooms, as is proper. He pressed a button and the door opened. The space inside was bigger than Jiwoo expected. A main living area with soft furniture, a small kitchen, a bathroom, and her bedroom to one side. Large windows showed the stars outside. She could see a planet in the distance, green and blue and beautiful. "The cubs' rooms are down this hallway," Hyen continued, leading her to a corridor that branched off from her living area. 4 doors lined the hall, each marked with a different symbol. Each room has everything they need. Sleeping platforms, food dispensers, environmental controls. They are comfortable. Can I meet them now? Wu asked. Hyen's ears flicked back slightly, a gesture she had learned meant uncertainty. "If you wish, but understand they are predators." "Young predators, yes, but still dangerous. They have claws and teeth. They are faster and stronger than you?" "I understand," Wu said. She had worked with dangerous animals on Earth. She knew how to be careful while also being kind. Hyen made a sound in his throat, something between a growl and a sigh. He walked to the first door and pressed the control panel. "Timon, the human caretaker, is here." The door slid open. A small figure emerged, walking on 4 legs. The cub was about the size of a large dog, covered in dark blue fur with silver stripes. Golden eyes stared at Jiwoo with startling intelligence. The cub's ears were flat against his head and his tail was low. He looked scared. "Hello, Timon," Wu said softly. She crouched down to be less tall and threatening. "My name is Jiwoo. I'm here to help you." Timon didn't move. His nose twitched, smelling her scent. Hyen opened the other doors one by one. 3 more cubs came out. Hana was covered in white fur with gray spots. Bora had red-orange fur that seemed to glow in the light. Minji was the smallest, with black fur and bright green eyes. All 4 cubs looked at Jiwoo with the same careful, scared expression. "They don't speak standard yet," Hyen explained. "They understand some words, but they are still learning. Valorian cubs usually learn language from their mothers. These 4, they only had each other." Wu nodded. She stayed very still, letting the cubs look at her. After a moment, Hanol took a step forward, then another. He came close enough that Jiwoo could have touched him, but she didn't move. Hanol sniffed her hand carefully. His nose was cold and wet against her skin. "Good boy," Jiwoo whispered. The other cubs watched. Slowly they came forward too. Soon all four were near her, sniffing and investigating. Their tails were still low, but not as low as before. "I will show you their rooms," Hyen said. He seemed surprised that the cubs had come so close so quickly. Each room was identical. A raised platform for sleeping, covered in soft material, a food dispenser in the wall, a water fountain, toys scattered on the floor, things meant to help young predators practice hunting. Everything was clean and new and completely empty of personality. "They will sleep here," Hyen said, "separately. It is important that they learn independence. In the wild, Valorian cubs leave their mothers at age 5. These cubs are already past that age. They must learn to be alone." We looked at the 4 cubs. They had clustered together in the hallway, pressed against each other. Timon was licking Minji's ear. Bora had her tail wrapped around Hanuel's back leg. "I understand," Wu said, though something in her chest felt tight. The cubs looked so small and scared. Hyen went through the schedule, feeding times, exercise times, medical checkups, training sessions. Everything was organized and planned. The cubs would learn how to be proper Valorians. They would learn to hunt, to fight, to survive alone. "I will leave you now," Hyen said. "If you need anything, use the communication panel. Someone will come." He looked at the cubs one more time, his expression unreadable. Then he left. Doc was alone with 4 alien predator cubs. She sat down on the floor, making herself small and unthreatening. The cubs watched her carefully. "Okay," she said quietly. "Let's start by getting to know each other." She spent the next hours with them. She learned that Timon was the bravest, always the first to try new things. Hanol was gentle and careful. Bora was curious and energetic. Minji was shy but smart, watching everything with those bright green eyes. When evening came, Fu showed each cub to their room. She gave them food from the dispensers. She made sure they had water. She tried to make the rooms feel less empty by arranging the toys in friendly ways. "Good night, Timon," she said, closing his door. "Good night, Hanel. Good night, Bora. Good night, Minji." She went to her own room. The bed was comfortable. The stars outside were beautiful. But she couldn't stop thinking about the cubs, alone in those empty rooms. On Earth, even the most solitary animals cuddled their young when they were small. These cubs had already lost their parents. Now they were being forced to sleep alone. Drua told herself she was being too emotional. She was here to follow Valorian protocol. She was here to help the cubs become what they needed to be. She fell asleep eventually. But her dreams were troubled. When she woke up in the morning and opened her bedroom door, she stopped in surprise. All 4 cubs were lying in a pile right outside her door. They were sleeping soundly, curled around each other. Timon's head rested on Bora's back. Minji was tucked under Hanuel's chin. They looked peaceful and safe. Jiwo's heart squeezed. She didn't know what this meant, but she knew one thing for certain. This was going to be more complicated than she thought. Jiwoo stared at the pile of sleeping cubs outside her door. She wasn't sure what to do. Part of her wanted to let them sleep. They looked so peaceful, so comfortable with each other. But she remembered Hyen's words about independence. These cubs needed to learn how to be alone. Gently, she knelt down beside them. "Wake up," she whispered, touching Timon's shoulder lightly. "Time to wake up?" The cubs stirred. Golden eyes blinked open, then green, then 4 sets of eyes were looking at her. They made small, chirping sounds like birds. Their tails wagged slightly. "Good morning," Guwu said. "But you're supposed to be in your own rooms. Come on, let's get you back." She stood up and walked toward the hallway with their rooms. The cubs followed her slowly, their heads low. They didn't want to go. She could see it in every line of their small bodies. Wu opened Timon's door. "In you go," she said, trying to sound cheerful. Timon looked at her for a long moment, then walked inside. She closed the door. She did the same with Hanul, then Bora, then Minji. Each cub went into their room without fighting. But none of them looked happy. Maybe they just got confused in the night, Wu thought. New place, new smells, new everything. They probably wandered around and ended up at her door by accident. She went about her morning routine. She ate breakfast. She reviewed her notes. She prepared for the day's schedule. First would be a medical checkup for all 4 cubs, then feeding time, then some basic training exercises. The medical checkup went well. The station's doctor, a friendly being named Woojin, who looked like a large purple octopus, examined each cub carefully. "Healthy," Woojin said in their bubbling voice. "All 4 are growing well. No problems." After the checkups, Jiwoo took the cubs to the feeding area. She had learned that Valorians ate meat, but these cubs were still young enough to need special food that was easier to digest. The food came out of the dispensers in small, soft chunks. The cubs ate eagerly, making happy sounds. "You were hungry?" Jiwoo said, smiling. She sat with them while they ate, noting how they shared the food even though each had their own dispenser. If one cub finished first, the others would push some of their food toward them. The training exercises were interesting. Hyen had left instructions for games that would help the cubs develop their hunting skills. Jiwoo set up holographic prey animals that the cubs had to chase and catch. Timon was fast and fearless, leaping at the holograms with sharp claws extended. Hano was more thoughtful, watching the patterns before striking. Bora was pure energy, running and jumping everywhere. Minji was precise, landing every attack perfectly, but the most interesting thing was how they worked together. Even though the exercise was meant for individual practice, the cubs kept coordinating with each other. They would herd the holographic prey toward each other. They would take turns attacking. When Minji missed a jump and fell, Timon immediately stopped his own hunt to check if she was okay. Jiwoo made notes on her datapad. This wasn't normal Valorian behavior. At least not according to anything she had read. The day passed quickly. Evening came again. Jiwoo fed the cubs dinner, played with them a little more, then guided them to their rooms. "Good night," she said to each one. "Sleep well." She closed their doors and went to her own quarters. She worked on her reports for a while, then got ready for bed. She was tired. It had been a long day. She climbed into bed and fell asleep almost immediately. When she woke up in the morning and opened her door, all 4 cubs were there again. Same pile, same peaceful sleeping, right outside her door. Jiwoo frowned. This wasn't an accident. They had done it on purpose. She woke them up gently again. "Come on, cubs! Back to your rooms." This time, when she closed their doors, she checked the lock mechanisms. Everything was working properly. The doors would open from the inside if there was an emergency, but otherwise they should stay closed. The 3rd night, Jiwoo decided to stay awake. She wanted to see how the cubs were getting out. She left her bedroom door open slightly and waited in the darkness. Watching. Around midnight, she heard a soft sound. A door opening. She watched as Timon emerged from his room. He walked to Hanuel's door and made a small chirping sound. After a moment, that door opened too. Then Bora's. Then Minji's. The cubs gathered in the hallway. They didn't make much noise. They simply walked together to Jiwoo's door and lay down in their pile. Within minutes, they were asleep. Jiwoo realized they must have figured out the door controls on the first night. These cubs were smart. Much smarter than anyone had thought. In the morning, Jiwoo contacted Hyen. His face appeared on the communication screen, looking slightly annoyed at being called so early. "Dr. Jiwoo, is something wrong?" "The cubs keep sleeping outside my door," Jiwoo said. "All 4 of them. Every night." Hyen's ears went flat against his head. "That is impossible. Valorians do not sleep in groups. We are solitary." "Well, these 4 do," Jiwoo said. She showed him the video footage from the hallway camera. Hyen watched in silence as the cubs gathered and made their pile. "This is ... Hyen paused. "This is very unusual. It must stop. They need to learn independence." "I know," Jiwoo said. "But they keep finding a way. They've learned how to open the doors." "Then we will lock the doors from the outside," Hyen said firmly. "We will use barriers. Whatever is necessary. These cubs must learn proper behavior." That night, The doors were locked from the outside. Jiwoo felt bad about it, but she understood this was part of her job. The cubs needed to learn. She went to bed. She tried not to think about the cubs alone in their rooms. At 3 in the morning, she was woken by sounds in the hallway. Scratching sounds, whimpering. She got up quickly and opened her door. All 4 cubs were outside their rooms, pawing at her door. When they saw her, they made desperate sounds. They weren't just scared. They were terrified. Their ears were flat, their tails were between their legs, and they were shaking. "Oh no," Jiwoo whispered. "It's okay. I'm here." She sat down in the hallway. Immediately, all 4 cubs crowded around her. They pressed against her body, making small crying sounds. Teemin put his head in her lap. Minji was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Jiwoo held them. She petted their fur. She made soothing sounds. Slowly, the cubs calmed down. Their shaking stopped. Their breathing became normal. They fell asleep right there, in a pile around her. Jiwoo stayed on the floor all night, her back against the wall. Her legs fell asleep. Her back hurt. But she didn't move. The cubs needed this. In the morning, Hyein came to check on the situation. He found Jiwoo still on the floor, surrounded by sleeping cubs. "Dr. Jiwoo," he said quietly, "you cannot encourage this behavior." "They were terrified," Wu said. Her voice was firm. "They were shaking and crying." "They need this, Commander. I don't care what Valorian cubs usually do. These cubs need to feel safe." Hyein looked at the pile of cubs. His expression was hard to read. In the wild, Valorian cubs sleep near their mothers for the first 3 years. Then the mothers drive them away. It is violent. It is harsh. But it teaches independence. He was quiet for a moment. These cubs lost their mothers too early. They never learned how to be alone because they had each other instead. So what do we do? Jiwoo asked. "I do not know," Hyein admitted. "This has never happened before." Jiwoo looked at the sleeping cubs. Boro was curled against her leg. Hanyul's paw was touching her hand. "I need to do some research. There has to be information about pack bonding in predator species. About trauma in young animals, about—" She paused. "About what these cubs actually need, not what we think they should need." Hyein nodded slowly. "Do your research, Dr. Jiwoo, but understand that the Valorian High Command expects these cubs to become proper warriors. Independent, strong, alone." "Maybe," Jiwoo said quietly. "There's more than one way to be strong." After Hyein left, Jiwoo carefully moved the cubs back to their rooms. They were so deeply asleep they barely stirred. She let them rest while she started her research. She pulled up every file she could find about Valorian development. About pack bonding in Earth animals. About trauma responses in young creatures. She read for hours, taking notes, forming theories. And slowly, an idea began to form. These cubs weren't broken. They weren't weak. They were adapting to their situation in the only way they knew how. They had lost their parents, so they became each other's family. They couldn't survive alone, so they learned to survive together. The question was, could Wu convince everyone else that this wasn't a problem to fix, but a solution to understand? Jiwoo spent 3 days buried in research. She read everything she could find about Valorian biology, about predator behavior, about childhood development across different species. She compared notes. She made charts. She ran simulations. And the more she learned, the more convinced she became that something important was happening with these cubs. On the 4th day, she made a discovery that changed everything. She was reading an old Earth biology paper about wolves when she found it. The paper discussed how wolf pups responded to their mother's scent. The mother's pheromones had a calming effect on the pups. It helped them sleep. It helped them feel safe. Without that scent, the pups would become anxious and scared. Wu sat back in her chair. Pheromones, chemical signals that animals couldn't control or even smell consciously. But that affected behavior anyway. She pulled up the biological scan that Dr. Woojin had done on her when she first arrived at the station. Every human who worked with aliens got scanned, so doctors would know how to help them if they got sick. She looked at the section about the chemicals her body produced. Humans made a lot of different pheromones. Some for stress, some for happiness, some for other things. Guiwu scrolled through the list, not really sure what she was looking for, then she saw it. A note from Dr. Woodgen in the margins of the scan. Interesting similarity to Valorian maternal pheromone markers. Worth further study? Guiwu's heart started beating faster. She pulled up the chemical structure of Valorian maternal pheromones and compared them to her own human pheromones. They weren't exactly the same, but they were close. Very close. She ran a simulation, modeling how a Valorian cub's brain would respond to human pheromones. The computer thought for a moment, then displayed the results. The response would be almost identical to how cubs responded to their mothers. The human pheromones would trigger the same calming effect, the same sense of safety, the same instinct to stay close. Oh, Jiwoo whispered. Oh, that's why. The cubs weren't sleeping outside her door because they liked her, though she hoped they did. They were sleeping there because her scent made them feel safe. Their instincts, the deep animal part of their brains, recognized her as something like a mother. Not exactly a mother, but close enough that their bodies relaxed around her. Jiwoo immediately called Hyein. When his face appeared on the screen, she didn't even say hello. I figured it out. I know why the cubs sleep at my door. She explained everything. The pheromones, the biological response, the similarity between human and Valorian chemical signals. Hyein listened without interrupting. His expression didn't change, but his ears were standing straight up, which meant he was paying very close attention. So you are saying, Hyein said slowly when she finished, that these cubs sleep near you because their biology tells them you are safe. Like a mother. Exactly, Jiwoo said. Their parents died when they were very young. They never got enough time with their mother's calming pheromones. But then they smell me and their instincts think they've found that safety again. Hyein was quiet for a long time. I do not know what to think about this. No one has ever studied humans and Valorians together like this. We did not know this connection existed. There's more, Jiwoo said. I've been watching the cubs. When they're around me, they're calm. They eat better. They sleep better. They learn faster. But when I force them to stay away, they become anxious. They can't focus. They don't eat as much. She pulled up her data. Look at these charts. Every time we've separated them, their stress levels go up. Way up. But they must learn independence, Hyein said, but he didn't sound as certain as before. Do they? Jiwoo asked. Commander, in the wild, Valorian cubs stay with their mothers for 3 years. These cubs are only 6. They should still be with a parent, but their parents are gone. So their biology found the next best thing, me. What are you suggesting? Hyein asked. I'm suggesting that we stop fighting their instincts, Jiwoo said. Let them sleep near me. Let them feel safe. And then, when they're older and more confident, we can teach them independence. Just like how it would happen naturally. The High Command will not like this, Hyein warned. Then we show them the science, the Wu said firmly. We show them that this isn't me being soft or the cubs being weak. This is biology. This is how their species works. Hyeon's tail flicked back and forth, a sign of thinking. Send me all your research. I will review it. If it is sound, I will present it to my superiors. Wu sent the files immediately. Then she went to check on the cubs. She found them in the training room with one of the station's other workers, a being named Do-Yun who looked like a large insect. Do-Yun was trying to get the cubs to practice their hunting exercises, but the cubs weren't cooperating. They sat in a pile in the corner, not moving. They won't work today, Do-Yun said, their antennae drooping with frustration. I don't understand. Yesterday they were so energetic. Yu walked over to the cubs. As soon as they saw her, their ears perked up. Their tails started wagging. They made happy chirping sounds. Hey, babies, Jiwoo said softly. She sat down next to them, and immediately all 4 cubs crowded around her. Timon put his head on her knee. Minji curled up against her side. Bora and Hanno pressed close on her other side. "Do the exercise now," Jiwoo said, gesturing to the holographic prey animals. "Go on, show me how good you are." The cubs looked at her, then at the holograms. Timon stood up first. He stretched, then bounded toward the holograms. The others followed. Within seconds, they were running and jumping and hunting with all the energy Do-yeon had expected. Do-yeon's antennae straightened in surprise. "You just asked them? And they did it?" "They feel safe around me," Guwoo explained. "When they feel safe, they can be brave." She watched the cubs play and hunt. They were so beautiful, so strong and fast. Timon cornered a holographic rabbit and pounced with perfect timing. Hanno worked with Bora to trap a virtual bird. Minji climbed up the wall and dropped down on her target from above. These weren't weak cubs. These were incredibly skilled young predators. They just needed to feel secure enough to show their skills. 2 days later, Hyeon called Jiwoo to a meeting. When she arrived, she found not just Hyeon, but 3 other Valorian officials. They all looked serious and important. Jiwoo's stomach clenched with nervousness. "Dr. Jiwoo," one of the officials said. Her name was Yoonji, and she had silver fur with black stripes. "We have reviewed your research. Your findings about the pheromone connection are ... unexpected. But accurate?" Jiwoo asked. "Yes," Yoonji admitted. "We had Dr. Woojin verify all your work. The chemical similarity is real. The cub's response to your presence is biological, not behavioral." Wu waited. She could feel her heart pounding. "However," another official said, "this presents a problem. These cubs are meant to join the Valorian fleet when they are old enough. They will be warriors. They cannot be dependent on a human." "They won't be," Jiwoo said quickly. "Right now, they're young. Too young to be without parental influence. But as they get older, they'll naturally become more independent. Just like wild cubs do. We just have to give them time." "How much time?" Unji asked. "In the wild, cubs separate from their mothers at around age 8 or 9, Jiwoo said. These cubs are 6 now. So maybe 2 or 3 more years of gradual independence training." The officials looked at each other. They made sounds in their own language that Jiwoo didn't understand. Finally, Yinji turned back to her. "We will allow a trial period. 3 months. You may let the cubs sleep near your quarters. You may provide them with the calming presence they need. But you must also work on independence training. They must show progress toward being able to function alone." "They will," Jiwoo promised. "I know they will." "If they do not improve," Yoonji warned, "we will have to try other methods. Harsher methods. We cannot have Valorian warriors who are too weak to sleep alone." Wu nodded. "I understand." After the meeting, she went straight to find the cubs. They were in their individual rooms where they'd been put for the meeting. She opened the doors one by one. "Come on," she said. "Come with me." The cubs followed her eagerly. She led them to her quarters. In the hallway outside her bedroom door, she had set up 4 sleeping pads. Soft, comfortable, warm. "These are for you," she said. "You can sleep here. Right here, every night. You don't have to go to those other rooms anymore. Not at night." The cubs investigated the pads. They sniffed them. They pawed at them. Then, as if they'd all agreed at the same time, they climbed onto the pads together. They made their usual pile, all 4 bodies intertwined, and for the first time since they'd arrived at the station, the cubs fell asleep quickly and peacefully. Without any fear or stress, Jiwoo watched them sleep. She felt a weight lift from her chest that she hadn't even realized was there. "Okay," she whispered. "Now we can really begin." The first week of the new arrangement went better than Jiwoo had dared to hope. The cubs slept peacefully on their pads outside her door every night. They woke up happy and energetic. They ate all their food. They played and trained with enthusiasm, but Jiwoo knew she couldn't let them become too dependent. She had promised the Valorian officials that she would work on independence training. So she started small. On the 8th day, she began leaving the cubs alone for short periods. First just 10 minutes while she went to get something from another room. The cubs whined and paced, but they didn't panic. When she came back, they crowded around her happily, tails wagging. "Good job," she praised them. "You were so brave." Each day she left them alone a little longer. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour. She watched them on the video feed while she was gone. At first, they stayed huddled together in a tight group, watching the door for her return. But gradually they started to relax. They would play with their toys. They would chase each other around the room. They were learning that she would always come back. After 2 weeks, Ji-woo tried something new. During the day, she had the cubs practice sleeping in their individual rooms. Not at night, just for afternoon naps. She left all the doors open so they could see each other, and she stayed nearby where they could smell her scent. Taemin was the first to actually fall asleep in his own room. Ji-woo watched through the doorway as he curled up on his sleeping platform, yawned, and closed his eyes. He slept for a whole hour by himself. "Look at you," Ji-woo said softly when he woke up. "So independent." One by one, the other cubs started napping alone too. Hanno next, then Bora, and finally Minji. They didn't like it as much as sleeping together, but they could do it. That was progress. Ji-woo documented everything in her reports. She sent updates to Hyein every few days. The cubs were improving. They were building confidence. They were learning that being alone didn't mean being in danger, but they still slept in their pile outside her door at night. That was their safe place, and Ji-woo wasn't ready to take it away yet. They needed it. During the 3rd week, something unexpected happened. The station had a small emergency. Nothing dangerous, just a power fluctuation that made the lights flicker and the alarms sound for a few minutes. It happened while Ji-woo was in a meeting on the other side of the station. When she heard the alarms, her first thought was of the cubs. She ran back to her quarters as fast as she could. She expected to find them scared and huddled together, maybe even trying to break down the door to find her. Instead, she found them standing in a defensive position in the hallway. Taemin was at the front, his small body tense and ready. Hanno and Bora flanked him on either side. Minji was behind them, watching the rear. They had formed a protective formation, like soldiers guarding something important. They were guarding her door. They were guarding her quarters, the place where her scent was strongest. They were scared. She could see that in their flattened ears and bristled fur. But they weren't running away. They were protecting what they saw as their home. "Hey," Ji-woo said softly, slowing down as she approached. "It's okay. I'm here." The cubs turned and saw her. Their defensive posture melted immediately. They ran to her, making worried sounds. But they had stood their ground. They had been brave. Ji-woo knelt down and hugged all 4 of them. "You did so well," she said. "You were so brave and strong. I'm proud of you." She reported the incident to Hyein. He came to review the security footage himself, watching the cubs form their protective stance and hold it until the alarm stopped. "This is warrior behavior," Hyein said. And there was something like pride in his voice. They did not run. They did not hide. They protected their territory. "They're getting stronger," Wu said. "Not just physically, emotionally too. They're learning that they can handle scary things." "Perhaps your method is working after all," Hyein admitted. He looked at the cubs who were playing together in the corner. They seemed healthier than when they arrived. It was true. In the 3 weeks since Ji-woo had let them sleep near her, the cubs had changed. Their fur was shinier. Their eyes were brighter. They had gained weight and muscle. They moved with more confidence. They played harder and learned faster, but more than that, they had started developing individual personalities. Taemin was revealed as a natural leader, always the first to try new things and protect the others. Hanno was the thinker, carefully observing before acting. Bora was the adventurer, constantly exploring and testing boundaries. Minji was the strategist, watching and learning and then executing plans perfectly. These personalities had probably always been there. Jiwoo thought, but stress and fear had hidden them. Now that the cubs felt safe, their true selves could emerge. In the fourth week, Jiwoo introduced the biggest challenge yet. She arranged for the cubs to go on a field trip to another part of the station without her. A Valorian instructor named Soman would take them to see the fighter ship hangars where they could watch real warriors training. "I won't be there," Jiwoo told the cubs, "but Soman will take good care of you, and I'll be waiting when you get back." The cubs looked uncertain. They pressed close to her, making worried sounds. "You can do this," Jiwoo said firmly. "You're big and strong and brave. Go see the ships. Learn about being warriors. I'll be right here when you come home." Soman arrived, a large Valorian with kind eyes. The cubs knew her from previous training sessions. They trusted her, at least a little bit. "Come, little ones," Soman said in her rumbling voice. "I will show you wonders." Timon was the first to go to her. He looked back at Jiwoo once, then walked forward. The others followed. Jiwoo watched them disappear down the hallway. Her chest tight with worry, she tried to work while they were gone, but she couldn't concentrate. She kept checking the time. The field trip was supposed to last 2 hours. 2 hours felt like forever. When the cubs finally returned, they were excited and energetic. They rushed to Jiwoo, all trying to tell her about what they'd seen at once. The ships were huge. The warriors were so fast. There were so many buttons and controls. "Did you have fun?" Jiwoo asked, smiling at their enthusiasm. All 4 cubs chirped and bounced. Yes, they'd had fun. And more importantly, they had gone somewhere without her and been okay. They had been scared at first, Soman reported, but they had adapted quickly. They had explored and asked questions and behaved like normal, curious cubs. "They did very well," Soman said. "You should be proud." Jiwoo was proud. Incredibly proud. By the end of the first month, the cubs were spending more and more time away from Jiwoo during the day. They would go to training sessions without her. They would play in the common areas with other young aliens. They would explore the station in small groups, always supervised but not always by G-Woo. But every night they still came back to their pads outside her door. That was their safe base. That was home. G-Woo started the next phase of training. She began moving the sleeping pads. Just a little bit each week. First, she moved them 2 feet farther from her door. The cubs noticed but adapted. The next week she moved them 2 feet farther. Then farther again. By the end of the second month, the pads were at the end of the hallway, a good 20 feet from her door. The cubs could still smell her scent, but they couldn't see her door directly. They fussed about it the first night, but they settled down eventually. "You're doing so good," Jiwoo told them each morning. "You're growing up so much." The third month brought the biggest change yet. Jiwoo moved 2 of the pads into one of the individual rooms and 2 into another room. She left the doors wide open so the cubs could see each other. "Tonight," she said, "Piman and Hanul will sleep in one room. Bora and Minji in the other. You'll still be close to each other. You'll still be safe. But you'll be learning to sleep in different spaces." The cubs whined and paced. They didn't like this change. But Jiwoo sat with them until they settled down. She petted their fur and hummed soft songs. Slowly they relaxed. Timin and Hanul curled up together on their pads. In the other room, Bora and Minji did the same. They weren't happy, but they weren't panicking either. They had learned to trust that Jiwoo wouldn't put them in real danger. Jiwoo barely slept that night, listening for any sounds of distress. But the cubs slept through the night. When morning came, they bounded out of their rooms, excited to see each other and see her. They had done it. They had slept in separate rooms. "I knew you could," Jiwoo said, her voice thick with emotion. "I knew you were brave enough." When the 3-month review came, Jiwoo presented all her data to the Valorian officials. She showed the charts of the cubs' stress levels decreasing. She showed videos of them being independent during the day. She showed their improved physical health, their better learning scores, their developing combat skills. "They are becoming proper Valorian warriors," Jiwoo said. "But they're doing it in their own way. They're learning that strength doesn't mean never needing anyone. It means being brave enough to face hard things, knowing you have support when you need it. Yunji reviewed all the information carefully. The other officials whispered among themselves in their own language. Finally, Yunji spoke. Dr. Jiwoo, your methods are ... unconventional, but the results cannot be argued with. These cubs are thriving. 6 months passed. The cubs were almost unrecognizable from the scared little creatures who had first arrived at the station. They were bigger now, almost twice the size they had been. Their movements were confident and graceful. They held their heads high. During the day they barely needed Jiwoo at all. They attended advanced combat training with Soman. They studied Valorian history and culture with other instructors. They practiced flying simulation programs, preparing for the day when they would be old enough to pilot real ships. They made friends with other young aliens on the station, playing and learning together, but every night they still came back to their rooms near Jiwoo's quarters. They slept in separate rooms now, each cub in their own space. But the doors stayed open and they could see each other. They could smell Jiwoo's scent. They were independent but not alone. Jiwoo's research had attracted attention across the galaxy. Scientists from dozens of species wanted to know more about the human-Valorian pheromone connection. They wanted to understand how human presence affected young predators. They wanted to know if this could help other traumatized cubs and pups and kits across the stars. Guru wrote papers. She gave presentations over video linked to universities and research stations. She carefully documented every stage of the cub's development. And slowly, a new field of study was born. They called it cross-species developmental psychology. Other human caretakers started working with alien young. They found that humans had a similar calming effect on many different species. Not all of them, but many. There was something about human pheromones, human body temperature, human heartbeat rhythms that made young creatures feel safe. It's because humans are so social, Jiwoo explained in one of her presentations. We evolved in family groups. We evolved to take care of our young for years and years. Our biology adapted to send out signals that say safe, protected, cared for, and apparently, those signals work across species lines. It made sense in a way. Humans had always been good at connecting with animals back on Earth. They had domesticated dogs and cats and horses. They had befriended birds and reptiles and everything in between. Maybe this ability to connect, to comfort, to nurture was written into human biology in ways no one had understood before. The Valorian High Command was particularly interested. They had other orphan cubs, Jiwoo learned. Cubs who had lost their parents in accidents or attacks. Cubs who were struggling, failing to develop properly, too traumatized to function. They asked if Jiwoo would be willing to train other human caretakers. They asked if she would develop a program. Yes, Jiwoo said immediately. Of course, yes. But first, she had to finish her work with Timon, Hanol, Bora, and Minji. The cubs were 9 years old now, in human terms. Old enough in the wild to have separated from their mothers. Old enough to be truly independent. It was time for the final test. G-Woo called the cubs together in the common area. They came immediately, as they always did. They were so big now. Timon came up to her shoulder when he stood on his back legs. Hanul's paws were as big as her hands. Laura and Minji moved with a deadly grace that reminded her these were predators. Apex hunters, beings who could be dangerous if they chose, but they were also her cubs. Her babies. The creatures she had cared for and protected and taught for 3 years. Sit down, she said. I need to talk to you. The cubs sat. They watched her with intelligent eyes. They understood standard language fluently now, though they still preferred to communicate with each other in their own chirps and growls. You've all done so well, Jiwoo began. Her voice was steady, but her heart was breaking. You've learned everything you need to know. You're strong and smart and brave. You're ready to begin real warrior training with the fleet. The cubs' ears perked up. They knew about the fleet. They had visited fleet ships. They had met real warriors. They had dreamed of joining them someday. But that means, Wu continued, that you'll be leaving the station. You'll be going to different ships. Timan, you'll go to the Star Hunter. Hanol, you'll join the Void Runner. Bora, you're assigned to the Nightblade, and Minji, you'll serve on the Silver Fang. The cubs looked at each other. Slowly, understanding came. They were being separated. After all these years together, they were being sent to different places. Minji made a small, sad sound. Bora's tail drooped. Hanuel's ears went flat. Timan looked at Jiwoo with something like betrayal in his golden eyes. I know, Jiwoo said, and her voice cracked. I know it's hard. But this is how it has to be. You need to learn to be independent warriors. You need to develop your own skills, make your own names, become your own individuals. You can't do that if you're always together. We don't want to be apart, Timan said. His standard was heavily accented but clear. We are pack. I know you feel that way, Jiwoo said gently. But Valorians aren't pack animals. You're solitary hunters. Each of you needs to learn to stand alone. You taught us that being together makes us stronger, Bora said. Now you say we must be apart? This is confusing. Jiwoo took a deep breath. This was the hardest part of being a caretaker. Knowing when it was time to let go. Being together did make you stronger, she said. When you were young and scared and healing, you needed each other. You needed me. But now you're not young anymore. You're not scared anymore. You're healed. And the next step in getting stronger is learning that you can survive alone. That you can thrive alone? Will we never see each other again? Minji asked, her voice very small. Of course you will, Jiwoo assured her. Fleet ships dock at stations all the time. You'll visit each other. You'll stay in contact through communication systems. You'll still be friends, still be family. You just won't live together anymore. The cubs were quiet. They pressed together, finding comfort in each other as they had for years. When? Hanol finally asked. 1 week, Jiwoo said. You have 1 more week together? That week was bittersweet. The cubs spent every moment they could with each other. They trained together. They ate together. They played their favorite games. They told stories about all the things they had learned and done. And at night, for the first time in months, Jiwoo let them sleep in a pile again. Just for this week. Just for goodbye, she would wake up in the morning and find them outside her door like they used to be. All tangled together, and her heart would hurt with love and sadness. On the last night, Jiwoo sat with them for a long time. She petted each cub's fur. She memorized the pattern of their stripes, the exact shade of their eyes, the feel of their purrs under her hands. I'm so proud of you, she told them. You came here scared and broken, and you grew into the most amazing young warriors I've ever known. You're going to do incredible things. All of you, will you forget us? Minji asked. Never, Jiwoo said fiercely. I could never forget you. You're my first cubs, my first success, my first... She paused. My first children, in a way. I'll remember you forever. We will remember you too, Timan said. He pressed his head against her shoulder. You saved us, Jiwoo. When we were lost and alone, you made us feel safe. You taught us how to be strong. We will carry that with us always. The other cubs made sounds of agreement. They crowded around her, a pile of fur and warmth and love. Goodbye isn't forever, Jiwoo said. It's just see you later. You're going to amazing places and doing amazing things. But you'll come back. You'll visit. And I'll always be here, cheering for you. On departure day, 4 different fleet ships docked at the station. Jiwoo walked each cub to their assigned ship. Hyein came with her and Soman and Dr. Woojin, and all the other beings who had helped raise these cubs. Timan was first. He stood at the airlock to the Star Hunter, looking very small next to the massive ship. The captain, a scarred veteran named Kyung, stood waiting for him. You ready, cub? Kyung asked. Timan looked back at his siblings at Jiwoo. Then he straightened his shoulders and lifted his head high. I am ready. He walked onto the ship without looking back. Jiwoo was proud and heartbroken all at once. Hanno left next, then Bora. Each departure was hard. Each goodbye was tearful. But each cub walked onto their ship with their head held high, brave and strong and ready. Minji was last. She was the smallest, the shyest, the one who had taken longest to trust. She stood at the airlock to the Silver Fang and trembled. "You can do this," Jiwoo whispered. "You're so brave, Minji, so smart and strong. You're going to be an amazing warrior." Minji turned and pressed her head against Jiwoo's chest one last time. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." Then she walked onto the ship. The airlock door closed. The ships detached and flew away, carrying 4 young Valorians off to their destinies. Jiwoo stood at the observation window and watched until the ships were just tiny dots in the starfield. Then she went back to her quarters. They felt empty now. Too quiet, too big, but her work wasn't done. Not by far. Over the next year, Jiwoo trained 20 more human caretakers. They went to different stations and different ships, caring for traumatized young of a dozen species. The Human Guardian program became official, recognized and requested across the galaxy. And the cubs thrived. Jiwoo received messages from them regularly. Timan was excelling in combat training. Hanno had discovered a talent for navigation. Bora was learning to fly fighters.